Hello, hello, welcome, please come in. It is time once more for a bonus episode, and this time we will be playing through Final Fantasy V using only the Beastmaster class. Mostly because I had some free time and I wanted to do a bonus episode. Beastmaster is a class I basically have no experience with. In most casual playthroughs, I would level it up enough to get control, exclusively to learn blue magic, and then not otherwise engage with the class in any way. But I know that control can be fairly useful in random encounters, and the catch and release ability of the class seems like it's going to be a sleeping juggernaut. They can also equip whips, which is something. Anyway, first boss down due to basic attacks, and I've unlocked access to the job menu and can make everyone Beastmasters. Hooray! I am a bit weapon limited because you can't buy daggers or whips at this point in the game, but that should be fine. I'm back to the start of the game to grab my first catchable monsters. These goblins, which is actually a bit more difficult than I expected, mostly because these stupid things are so very frail. Goblins only have 16 HP, and because of how catch works, I need to get them down to 1 or 2 health for catch to work. Even unarmed attacks from the back row deal 6 to 8 damage, meaning if those hits work out in my favor, I can capture a goblin. And if they don't, try again. It may seem like this isn't worth the time, but trust me, it is. Okay, that is 4 goblins captured, 1 for each character. And joke time is over. It's into the canal to face my first boss, Carnac. And by releasing a single goblin, I can end the fight immediately. Because yup, goblins can cast Flare in this game. For some reason. Who can say why? Anyway, that gets me into the ship graveyard. Here I can run around, pick up random items, and it's already next boss time. Siren has mechanics of some kind, and the only mechanic that matters is she has less HP than Flare deals. I think I'm actually just gonna skip Carwin, actually. There isn't really anything I care about, and the next boss on this mountain also can be one-shot by Flare. And conveniently, if you kill Nagisa before she has a chance to summon Forza, he just doesn't show up. So that fight is really easy, and that also gets me my first proper weapon, the Chain Whip. This hits for full damage from the back row and has a 1/3 chance to inflict paralysis, which is neat, but not nearly as strong as catch. Anyway, over to Waltz to buy some new equipment and grab the first Elven Mantle for some evasion. There is a crisis in Waltz Tower, so it's time to head over there and face down my next boss, Garula. Aw, so sad. We finally reached a boss I can't one-shot with Flare. And because I've been avoiding fights, I'm also hilariously underleveled. So it's time for some grinding. This won't actually improve the Flare damage because that's based on the stats of the captured monster, but I really just need some more HP to survive a few hits and deal a bit more damage. Back into the fight, and I can deal okay damage with Flare, and then a few attacks brings down Garula. In theory, I could have flown back to the starting area to capture more goblins, but ultimately I will just need to level at some point anyway. The crisis in Waltz has been resolved, and I can meteor teleport over to Carnac, which does have mithril knives and some new armor, so I can actually have a fully equipped party. Not that that is super relevant, given how strong the catch mechanic in this game actually is. And now it's time for the fire ship. And I'm still pretty underleveled, might as well actually do some fighting here so I can bulk up my HP by a bit. I will probably need a bit more durability at some point. Anyway, now that I've grabbed the treasure and gotten a bit more experience, it's time to do some catching, which means catching 4 zoos. These have a very funny release ability that I can show off in the next boss fight against Liquid Flame. Oh, this boss absorbs wind? That's, not great, should have probably double-checked that. Pivot. Okay, Liquid Flame is weak to ice, checking. Oh, the ice soldiers can cast Blizzara. Yeah, no, that's not enough damage. Fine, I'll just capture some more stupid goblins. Sorry, I tried to do something more interesting. Sad. Anyway, back over to the fire ship. This is a bit complicated because Liquid Flame counters everything in some way, but a handful of flares are more than enough to win the fight. So it's time to escape from Carnac Castle. Let me just pull up my Carnac Castle map so I know which treasures here are actually worth the effort to grab, and it's basically all the ones with money or elixirs. I will definitely need elixirs later. And skip the Deathclaw fight by killing the soldier first, and that is Carnac Castle sorted. And completing the fire ship means I can now purchase whips for the whole party. Hooray! Carnac Castle destroyed, and it's time to head south. But let's take a quick stop off in the desert. This area is home to the Dorm Chimera, which is pretty easily beat up thanks to the magic of the new control command I have. And I catch it, so I have a nice Aqua Breath on hand. Then into the ancient library to fight the next boss, Ifrit. And Aqua Breath deals no damage. I always forget how weak that attack is. Well, I'm underleveled and probably not going to... Hold on, is this working? Is Ifrit vulnerable to paralysis? That would be very funny. And yep, Ifrin went down, despite no real prep work. Hilarious. In the library itself, I need to look for a page 32 to capture, because it will be very useful against the upcoming boss. There we go. Hold tight, page 32, you won't be in my inventory for long. Because unleashing page 32 triggers Banish, which has a chance to kill Byblos. It didn't, which isn't ideal. Okay, let's just grab a couple. If nothing else, killing other pages will give me some experience. Okay, now that I have a few, I can succeed on the first attempt, and banish Byblos. After all the trouble this fight has given me in the past, one-shotting it feels very cathartic. And that gives me a boat, and my next destination is this cave, which I normally ignore because it's full of garbage and angry squirrels. However, it is also full of a single Blitz Whip, which is a stronger whip that also has a chance to trigger a thunder spell. Nice. Further along in Jackal, I can buy better armor for the whole party. I could also buy better daggers, but then I'd have to put some of my characters in the front row, and they aren't really durable enough for that. Tough choices. Okay, time to head east to Crescent Island. Goodbye, boat. We will see you shortly. And next up is to take the Black Chocobo back over to the ship graveyard. There's an enemy here, the Undead Husk, that I'll need in just a little bit. Black Chocobo ride back over to the ancient library, and the next destination means heading through the desert. But first, I need a Dorm Chimera. While Aqua Breath is indeed very weak, it also deals aggressive damage against desert enemies, which should make it quite useful. It's still not actually strong enough to take out the Sandworm in one hit, which is pathetic, but that's why I brought two. Okay, through the shifting desert and into Ronka, but oh no, we've been tricked. That's fine, quick teleport back over to Crescent Island, and yay, airship. But first, boss, Greyclaw. It takes 2 tries, but the Undead Husk can hit the boss with Break, killing it instantly. It is very funny how many of the bosses can be circumvented by caught enemies. Anyway, now I have an airship. But in order to get to the now flying city of Ronka, I need some adamantite from an adamantoise. And wow, that is so little damage. Even the lightning proc did nothing. What options do I have? Ooh, I haven't done this one yet. Let's hop back over to the Wind Crystal Shrine. Oh, the job explanation? I guess I did skip that since I have a mod to remove cutscenes. Hopefully that didn't break anything. Anyway, back to the Adamantoise fight to release the Mani Wizard to one-shot the Adamantoise with death. Easy peasy. Alright, Floating Fortress time. Let's start by just seeing how basic attacks do, and they aren't great. Not ideal. Even Bartz isn't dealing that much damage, and he has the best whip. Okay, new plans must be addressed. Let's try a skeleton from the ship graveyard. Okay, that's not good enough. Okay. I'm trying to be too clever, and there just isn't really any good, clever way to deal with this. So it's time to head to the desert, because it's time to catch some bears, which live in the desert, apparently. Anyway, bears have been acquired, and yeah, that's a lot of damage. Still not enough to one-shot the flamethrowers, which is sad, but it's enough to get most of the way. I guess the actual question is the rocket launchers. I see. Confuse, percentage damage, and then I paralyze my own party members. Yeah, this isn't great. This is gonna take some work, isn't it? Okay, I really need to stop getting paralyzed literally every attack. Okay, there we go. Rocket launcher's finally down, except I have to win that fight again because there are more rocket launchers. Alright, hold please while I suffer through this. Okay, the secondary defenses are down, and now it's time for the main cannon. I've switched my party over to Mage Mashers, other than Bards, because the Blitz Whip is strong. And before I go in, I need to do some catching. Specifically, stone golems, for reasons I will get to. Right now, actually, because stone golems can use Earthquake, which isn't actually super strong, but it can two-shot the launchers. Though it does happen after Bartz has been afflicted with Old. Now it's kind of just a DPS check, and I don't think I'm winning. Nope. Okay, I'm gonna need a DPS boost, which is to say, more bears. So, 2 Earthquakes take out the launchers, and 2 bears deal a lot of damage. Then it's kind of just hope I can deal enough damage fast enough. And I do, though that took a lot more work than I was expecting. Soul Cannon being a bit of a jerk. And with Soul Cannon dead, I can storm Ronka Ruins itself, which is pretty uneventful. There aren't really any enemies here that I can't handle through the use of control, but there also aren't any super useful catches either. Not actually sure what my strategy should be against the next boss. I think the answer is going to be bears, mostly because the Archaeoavis is, well, actually 5 different bosses in a trenchcoat, and none of them are weak to any of the nonsense I would normally use. So it probably makes sense to just deal the most damage possible as quickly as possible. And with bears acquired, it's into the boss fight. Phase 1 is the least dangerous, so I need to just beat up the Avis with basic attacks, which really just comes down to Bartz because he's the only character who can deal actual damage. However, once I see the incredibly subtle tell that the Avis has switched forms, it's bear time. And 3 more bears takes out the remaining elemental forms. The Avis comes back to life, and actually has enough HP to survive a bear, but too bad for it, because Bartz can hit 1 more time for really good damage to bring the Avis down. Oh, I forgot whips deal double damage to flying enemies in the Pixel remaster. And that means Galuf is gone, and we're following after, which naturally means I need to do some more monster catching. A few more stone golems, in fact, because next boss on the list is the Parabolus, and by unleashing a few stone golems, I can get their HP suitably low. That way, when they self-destruct, it won't deal very much damage. Boss solved. Next up, I need to head back to the Northern Mountain to control a Gallicat to cast Float on the entire party, because the next boss fight is against the Earth-powered Titan. Basic attacks deal more than enough damage to bring him down, and... oh, Paralysis stops Earthshaker. Anyway, I do need to actually grab another page 32 real quick. Actually, I should grab 2 so I can keep 1 for later. I also bought a flame ring at some point. That's also for later. Anyway, Chimera Brain is up next, and it's vulnerable to banish, and as such, gets banished. Okay, very exciting boss rush completed, and it's time to take the path to Galuf's world. And here we are, on an island, getting abducted, which means Galuf must come to the rescue. The odds against Gilgamesh are not actually looking that favorable. I think I need to use some high potions. Wow, that's embarrassing. Oh well, party rescued, and it's time for the big bridge. The random encounters themselves are pretty easy, and it's Gilgamesh time again. The first half of the fight goes pretty well. My goal is to knock him into phase 2 while silenced, so he can't apply all his buffs. That did not work. I am not winning this fight. That's a little bit of a problem. What monsters are around here? Okay, Devilfish are useless. Trents are just basic high damage. Could work. 1700 damage? Okay, yeah, that can probably do it. Let's just do some quick catching. And back onto the bridge. So, new plan here is to only attack with Mage Mashers in the first half of the fight. Bartz can prioritize healing instead. This should maximize the chance that Gilgamesh is silenced on the phase transition. And yep, that does it. So, now it's time to throw out trees and a bear I found. And that wins the fight. Nice! Kill some more enemies towards the end of the bridge, and we are flung across the world to the town of Rigol, which has new whips to buy for improved damage. And high potions. Sweet, sweet high potions. Time to head south, loop around. This Moogle is in trouble, so let's ride the waves through this cave. And yeah, that's pretty decent damage. Not like dedicated attacker damage, but it works. I can also use control where needed. Anyway, the boss at the end of this dungeon can be killed with a single Phoenix down, which means Moogle is rescued and we can head over to Castle Ball. And then leave because I need some medicine for a dragon. Werewolf Town is also coming in clutch with some very nice new equipment. We love more damage. And before I leave, I have another thing I need to do, because the area around Quelb has this toad enemy called the Cornago. And by catching one of these and chatting with this dude Noel, I can get the Cornago Gourd. This allows me to catch enemies when they are less than half HP rather than less than 1/8 of HP, which is a huge boost to the usability of catch. Okay, mountain time. Random treasures, none of which are interesting. Ooh, Hypno Crown. I actually forgot that was here. That makes control work better. Anyway, boss time, and I can unleash the power of page 32 again. Again? Again? Again! And that one-shots the dragon pod. Healing herbs in hand, and it's back to Castle Ball, and now I have my flying dragon. So it's over to Turtle Island to sink it below the ocean, and then back over to the area around Castle Ball to catch an Aquathorn. And I have decided to pause the game, mid-capture, so I can't get decent footage of it. Ugh. Now it's over to this fleet, take a nap, and it's boat fight time. And this will not be a long boat fight, because while Gilgamesh is back, he is way less threatening. Way less threatening. Thank you, Aquathorn, for making that fight very short. And that means it's time to take a submarine ride into Barrier Tower. And a fun aspect to Beastmasters is I can actually fight the dragons here, mostly because they can be controlled and deal a lot of damage to themselves. The red dragons aren't super interesting, but the yellow dragons are. They're also very easy to catch, since they have Maelstrom. Next boss is Atomos, who has its usual gimmick of dragging in party members. I can start the fight pretty strong by taking out half its HP with 2 lightning casts. This is enough to let my basic attacks win the fight before my entire party gets destroyed. I now have a submarine, so it's into Turtle Cave to grab the branch of Moor from Turtle Friend. But before heading over to Moor, I need to head to the desert. I dodged around after rescuing that Moogle, because this area has sand crawlers, which are very strong, very dangerous, and key to my next boss fight. Okay, now it's over to Moor. They do sell better daggers, but I think I'm gonna stick with whips. The better armor is very nice, though. Alright, Forest of More time, which means it's now the Crystal boss fight. And this fight can be pretty tricky, but it won't be here, because Sandcrawler, when released, uses Maelstrom. It does take a few attempts to hit the entire enemy group, but once it does, they are all left with a single digit of HP, and I can just take them down with single attacks. I do have a Flame Ring equipped as a precaution, but it ends up not being needed. That means Galuf is out, and Kryl is in, and we can head over to Exdeath's castle to wrap up World 2. And I need to grab some magic dragons here. These have the Blaze ability, which functions identically to the lightning ability I used on Atomos, except it is fire element. Meaning, if I catch 4 of them, and use each to deal 25% of the target's max HP, I can in fact 4-shot anything in the game, as long as it doesn't heal and it has less than 40,000 HP-ish. So yeah, Gilgamesh time, and I can actually just use 2 dragons to start the long cutscene. He then phase transitions and stops being able to deal damage, so I can just spam attacks until Exdeath interrupts to banish him to the void. Goodbye. Anyway, I need to acquire some more dragons real quick. Hello, Exdeath, might I introduce you to my cadre of dragons? Wow, that was really funny. World 3 time. And that means Bartz and Kryl are on their own for a bit, and I will need to do a boss fight against an antlion, so let's just give that a shot. Yeah, that's not great. Antlions isn't super durable, or even super damaging, but it can have my level with Discord, which really hurts my ability to deal damage. Okay, what are my catch options? Why are there no random encounters? Are there not random encounters here? Did not know that. Okay, guess we just have to wing it. I mean, my attacks aren't dealing no damage, and I do have a good stock of high potions. I guess I can make this work? Okay, that did indeed work. That means Ferris has rejoined the party, and we're back over to the ancient library. And next up, I need to see if there are any enemies worth capturing. No, not really. What is my plan for the stupid gargoyles? Actually, that's gonna be a problem. You know what, let's just try to beat the gargoyles the old-fashioned way by getting very lucky. Oh, that worked? Huh, double damage to flying enemies is surprisingly effective. Anyway, there are a lot of treasures in this pyramid, but I will be mostly skipping them. I'd prefer to fully explore the area once Lena is back in the party. Oh, this mummy fight is not going great, is it? They can inflict zombie. That's bad. Okay, what catches are there that I can actually use? Because wow, I need something. Ooh, Zephyrus, she summons enemies. Maybe she has something I can... A Dorm Chimera? Really? What's next? Ronkin Knight. Okay, that might be something. Okay, let's give this stupid mummy fight another try, because I really need to get past here. You know, now that I think about it, mummies are probably undead. I can just use a phoenix down. Okay, moving on. At the top of the pyramid, I get my first tablet, and it's back to the Forest of More to fight Melusine. And yeah, that Ronkin Knight does deal pretty good damage. Probably should have grabbed more than one of them. Oh well, let's see how the fight goes once we get to the physical vulnerable phase. Oh, that's actually quite good. I guess Melusine counts as flying. Nice. Okay, Melusine down with no real work. And I can fly over to the sealed castle to pick up my 2 legendary weapons, the Assassin's Dagger and the Fire Lash. Definite upgrades. And then over to Mirage Village, where I can buy new and better armor for the whole party and pick up the Thief Dagger. Alright, well, what do I do next? And I think the answer is to just pop into the Rift. I could do a bunch of optional side stuff, but I don't actually think any of it's really worth doing. Instead, I'll start by catching a handful of zoos, then it's into the Rift. And the first boss on the list is Califasteri. And she drops to 4 Breath Wings because, again, Breath Wing deals 25% of the target's max HP and damage. So that's fun. Next up, it's into the waterfall area. I need to find a dragon. But while I do, I can use Achelons to get some decent experience via petrification. Anyway, handful of dragons in hand, and I can go up against the next boss, a panda. And these dragons hit like trucks, it turns out. And that is a 3-shot. Nice. In the next area, we encounter the Dragon Avis. These also release to use Breathwing, and can easily be controlled, making them very easy to acquire. And with dragons in hand, it's time for the next fight, Catastrophe. This boss loves to use Earthshaker to take out the entire party. I could run all the way to the Northern Mountain to get float in the whole party again, but instead I'm just going to try this a couple times until the attack RNG works out in my favor. And it only actually takes 2 attempts. Alright, I am just steamrolling these bosses. Who knew being able to deal 25% of a target's max HP and damage 4 times in a row would be really good, actually. Oh, everyone? I guess that makes sense. Dragons acquired, and it's into the Halicarnassus fight. He can make my party toads, but that doesn't actually stop me from throwing out dragons. Oh, must be a rounding issue. Let me just... There we go. And then it's on to Twintania, which means keeping the party alive until it starts channeling Giga Flare, then attacking with the Assassin's Dagger. Okay, let me just try that again. And the final required boss before the end, Gilgamesh, which only requires a single Dragon Avis to deal over the damage threshold to start the end of battle cutscene. And that is it. I am ready to take on Exdeath. I mean, I don't know how well that will actually go, but oh, I should go buy Hermes sandals for everyone. Oh, and I need to pick up the magic lamp too. And that means it's time to start the final fight. I'm a little skeptical about winning this, but we'll see. So the first issue is that Exdeath can really just one-shot anyone in the party. I do have a lot of Phoenix Downs, but not infinite Phoenix Downs. And I have a lot of elixirs, but again, not infinite elixirs. And while I would love to be able to use some good releases to breeze through this phase, I 100% need all 4 of those for the Neo Exdeath fight after this. Okay, we're into the Meteor phase, which hits 4 times and one-shots anyone it hits, so now it's kind of just a luck game on whether or not the meteors will just kill my party. And they don't! Okay, we're into Neo Exdeath. Everyone's at low HP, or dead, so that's not ideal. Anyway, let's do some quick healing, then throw out the magic lamp 3 times to kill the rear segment, and do some necessary damage to the rest of them. Now it's time to start using Breathwing, and all my guests one-shot the party. Yeah, that tracks actually. The big downside is that every Neo Exdeath segment has over 40,000 HP, meaning it won't be enough to get off all my Breathwings. I then still need to do 10 to 15,000 damage to each of the 3 remaining segments, and with all my guests able to one-shot the party, that's just not gonna happen, not at this point anyway. Okay, so in theory there is actually a stronger weapon I could get. This Stingray drops the Dragon Whisker, which is 10 points stronger than the Fire Lash. Unfortunately, Stingrays only show up 1/16th of the time, and the drop rate of the whip is 1/16th, meaning this would take a lot of time to even get 1 whip, let alone 3 or 4. Okay, yeah, that's not really worth the time, especially when the fastest way to take them out is throwing out Breath Wings, which I would then either have to restock, or reset, which would be tedious and would mean no experience. I think I'm just going to level. I have a couple options here, but I think I'm going to level up in the waterfall room of the Rift. The Atrilons here show up in every fight, and every enemy here is vulnerable to petrification. I went into my first Exdeath attempt at level 31. Let's get up to 35 and try again. Okay, back into the fight. Damage numbers don't actually look any better, and my health is higher, but honestly not that much higher. I do have more elixirs, because Atrilons actually have them as a rare drop, so that should help. But wow, this isn't going super great. I just really wish I could afford to use any of my catches here. And I don't even make it past the Meteor phase, mostly because it's just pure luck on whether anyone survives that. Especially if he casts it twice in a row. Gonna try this again at the same level, and there we go. Made it to Neo Exdeath, and Almagest is still a one-shot and still hits everyone. Yeah, I really just need to level up to the point that my party can survive Almagest, or increase the chance that it just misses, which seems to be level-based. I'm actually not sure what the calculation is for Almagest hitting or missing. I mean, I might be able to do something with my accessories, but auto haste is just too good. Okay, I'm back at the standard level of 40. Bit of a shame that after all the strength Beastmaster showed up to now, I still have to get up to level 40 in the end. If only this game didn't have a damage cap. Anyway, my health is now high enough to survive Almagest, hopefully. My damage is also a bit better, and I've accumulated enough elixirs, I'm just gonna use those whenever necessary, instead of bothering with crappy high potions. This time, I don't even see Meteor, meaning I get into the Neo Exdeath fight with everyone already at max HP. So, throw out the magic lamp as usual, then release all my dragons. Not sure how I got 2 magic lamps, but I guess that doesn't matter, I guess? Anyway, I'm going to use the magic lamp a few more times. Earth and Wall and all target damage are nice, and yep, Almagest is no longer a one-shot. Okay, I've unleashed all my strongest attacks, and Grand Cross, Berserk, Bartz, and Ferris. They are my best damage dealers, so that's not wise, Exdeath. I do still want to focus down the bottom segment to stop future Almagest, and by the time I do that, the fight is already over. Alright, thank you for the Berserk. And that was Final Fantasy V, beaten with only Beastmasters, and that was mostly pretty fun. The catch mechanic in this game is not complicated, but it is very good, most of the time. Realistically, even in the endgame, it was incredibly strong, just a bit let down by the damage cap stopping me from killing Exdeath as quickly as I'd like. Oh well, you can't win them all that easily. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone, and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.